Myself, Dr. Hanuman Prasad. I am working as an assistant professor in the Department of Chemistry at Institute of Aeronautical Engineering, IARE, which is located at Dundigal. The topic that I am going to discuss is from Module 5, Gender and Culture. And the name of the topic is Gender and Development Issues. The contents that I am going to discuss as a part of this topic are Introduction, Gender Studies, Gender Issues in Development, and Role of Gender in Development, and finally, References. Let's look at each and every content in detail. First of all, Introduction. By the end of this topic, Gender and Development Issues, you should be able to define different concepts used in gender studies and their applications to gender development. And you should be able to discuss gender issues in development. You should also be able to explain the role of gender in development. You should also be able to explain why gender matter in development. And finally, you should also be able to demonstrate women's role in development. Okay, so there are 3 theories for this women's role in development. Okay, now by looking at the introduction, you have to understand what are the things that you should be able to analyze, or you should be able to define or discuss or explain or demonstrate. Okay. Now let's look at the next content, Gender Studies. As you know, gender is a social and cultural construction. Okay? Social and cultural construction. Gender refers to ways in which a particular society constructs differences between men and women, and also differences between masculinities and femininities. As you know, men and women or male and female are sex terms, whereas masculine and feminine are gender terms. Okay? So these are gender terms. Men and women, in otherwise, we can say male and female. So these are sexual terms. Right. The analyst Mose defined gender as a set of roles which, like costumes and masks in the theater, communicate to other people that we are feminine or masculine. Okay? So that is the definition given by the famous analyst Mose. What is the definition? He defined gender as a set of roles which communicate to other people that we are feminine or masculine. Okay? So that is why these two are gender terms. These masks include dress, attitudes, personalities, work both within and outside the house, family commitments, etc. So what are the masks that he has compared? The roles, set of roles like costumes and masks in the theater. So the masks include dress, attitudes, personalities, work both within and outside the home, and finally family commitments, and so many things like that. Okay. So these are the concepts in gender studies. And let's look at the next content. The term sex denotes the actual physical makeup of individuals that define them as male or female. So that is why male or female are sexual terms, right? So the term sex denotes the actual physical makeup of individuals that define them as male or female. Sex is determined by genetic makeup, internal reproductive organs, organization of the brain, and the control of hormone production. Okay? Sex is determined by these three factors. First factor is genetic makeup, second factor is internal reproductive organs, and the third factor is organization of the brain and the control of hormone production. Okay? So this is also the part of gender studies. Now let's look at the next content, gender issues in development. What are the various issues? What are the various issues that lie in the development? Okay, as a gender issues. Okay, the various issues include life expectancy, the first one. The second one, population. Third one, education. Fourth one, health. And fifth one, employment. These five are the key factors which are the gender issues in the development. The first one is life expectancy, population, education, health, and employment. Let's look at all these factors in detail. The first factor is life expectancy. First of all, what is life expectancy? Life expectancy is the number of years on average that someone can expect to live. Okay, that means the average lifespan is considered as life expectancy. High and rising life expectancy is associated with a good and improving quality of life. A country's life expectancy is a measure of how effectively it is governed and how it compares with the rest of the world. Okay? So a country's life expectancy is a measure of how effectively it is governed and also how it compares with the rest of the world. So these are the measures that will determine the country's life expectancy. Okay, effective governing and comparison with the rest of the world. So these are the main things that measure or that determine a particular country's life expectancy. Okay, and which influences and which is one of the issue in the development. Okay, which kind of issue? This is a gender issue. Okay, now let's look at the continuation. Women live longer than men, but there are slightly more men than women in the world today. In the world, there are slightly more men than women. And this pattern varies in different parts of the world. Okay? It is not fixed. This pattern varies in different parts of the world. In developed countries, women live longer than men. In developing countries, men live longer than women. So that is the difference between developed and developing countries. The developing countries, men live longer than women, whereas in developed countries, women live longer than men because all the facilities are well established in the developed countries. That is why women live longer than men. Okay. This suggests that assuming women in both sets of countries, what are the both sets of countries? Developed countries and developing countries. Developed countries like America, developing countries like India, okay, are genetically similar. You have to assume that women in both sets of countries, developed as well as developing, are genetically similar. There must be social factors at work. Okay, what this suggests? There must be social factors at work. Okay. Now let's look at the next factor, that is population, which is the issue in the development. It is also one of the gender issue in the development. Let's look at this content. Although women live longer than men do, and although in 1985 there were more women than men, 1985 there were more women than men. Okay, although in this particular year there are more women than men, there are slightly more men than women in the world today. Right now, in today's scenario, there are slightly more men than women in the world, overall world, not in particular country. So if you see the particular country, any country, maximum, almost 72 countries have the same strategy. Okay, there are more men than women, means there are less women than men. Okay, the world statistical average of women per every 100 men is 98.6. This is the world statistical average of women per every 100 men. There are 72 countries where men outnumber women. Outnumber means more numerous. Okay. So there are 72 countries where men are more in number than women. Particularly in Asia, South Pacific, Latin America, and North America. Okay. These continents, especially, there more number of men than women. Okay. A striking case is that of India, where the gender ratio is 92.7 women to every 100 men. Okay, the world statistical average shows there are 98.6 women per every 100 men, but in India, there is only 92.7 women per every 100 men. And even more surprisingly, in a relatively wealthy state, such as the Punjab, there are only 79.3 women per 100 men. This is the more surprising factor because it is the relatively wealthy state. So just now we have discussed that in the developed countries, women live longer than men, right? Then according to that, the women population should be high. So in a wealthy state like Punjab also, there are only 79.3 women per 100 men. So you can see how much difference is there. This is a significant difference. Okay. And in the continuation, based on population statistics, it is reasonable to assume that in any country, the population of male to female would be 50:50. Okay. So based on population statistics, one can assume reasonably that the population of any country with male to female ratio 50:50. But this is not the case. Just now we have seen the world statistics, it is 98.6 women per 100 men. And in India, 92.7 women per 100 men. Especially surprisingly in Punjab state, there are only 79.3 women per 100 men. Okay. So that is why this is not the case. But one can assume reasonably that every country should have the male to female ratio of 50:50. In some societies where male children are preferred, male-female imbalances are increasing due to the imbalance between the male-female ratio is due to sex-selective abortions and infanticide. Sex-selective abortions include the sex selection, particularly some people want or prefer male children. So they give infanticide and they kill the female foeticide. Okay, female foetus. Okay, so that kind of scenario is there in the past world, but in the current era, so this is almost diminished. Okay, so that is how everyone should have awareness that both gender are equally same. Okay, and now let's look at the next factor, education. How it will be one of the issues, gender issues in the development. Women make up 2/3 of the illiterate population in the world. Means if there are 100 persons in the world, 2/3 of the population, illiterate population especially. Okay. If for example, out of 100, 60 are illiterate, let's say, 2/3 of illiterate population in the world will be made up by women. Means 60, let's say out of 100, 2/3 of 60 is 40. So 2/3 of the illiterate population is contributed by women. So that is what it says, the education statistics. Illiteracy levels, access to schooling, school dropout rates, these are the reasons for the women to have more illiterate population. In regions where illiteracy is evident, it is much higher among women than among men. Okay? School dropout rates are higher for girls than boys in many developing countries, especially in developing countries. School dropout rates are more for girls than for boys. Okay? Currently, 64% of the world's 800 million illiterates are women. Okay? So, in the world, there are 800 million illiterates. Out of them, 64% are women only. 64%. Okay? 64% means almost 2/3. Right? While many countries achieve near parity in educational enrollment, parity is nothing but there are equal number of boys and girls that involve in education equally. So especially as you know that Kerala state is the one which has 100% literacy. Especially one of the districts in Kerala, that is Aeronautical. So which has 100% literacy, both male and female. Everyone goes for education. Okay. So like that, everyone should look at that and should improve in their positive points, not in negative way. Okay. So one should take a note of this. And progress towards gender equality in education is a more complex goal and more difficult to measure. Okay. So what is more difficult to measure? Progress towards gender equality in education is a more complex goal to achieve and it is more difficult to measure. Okay. So one should have a constructing target. Okay. Not a destructing target. Target should be in a constructing manner. Okay. So the progress towards gender equality in education, not only in education, in all respects. Okay. So that is what is the role of education in the development. Okay. So this is one of the gender issues in development. Now the next factor that that is one of the gender issues in development is health. Women experience more health problems than men because of problems related to their reproductive functions. Example, early childbearing, unsafe abortions, etc. And because of discriminatory practices like discriminatory childcare and undernutrition, means not giving proper nutrition for the girl child compared to male child, and discriminatory childcare, in that also discrimination. So if it is male child taking more care, or if it is female child taking less care, like that, it should not be the case. So these two are the main reasons for the experiencing of more health problems by women as compared to men. What are the two reasons? Reproductive functions, example early childbearing and unsafe abortions. And because of discriminatory practices such as discriminatory childcare and undernutrition. The key factors that adversely affect girls' health include discriminatory childcare practices, as I have explained just now, and female genital mutilation, FGM. It is shortly considered as FGM, female genital mutilation. Okay, and sex selection and sex selective abortions, as I have discussed just now. Okay, so what is FGM, female genital mutilation? Female genital mutilation refers to the cutting or removal, which is a ritual cutting or removal of some or more of the vulva. Okay, so that is female genital mutilation. And sexually transmitted infections, which are shortly represented as STIs, sexually transmitted infections. including HIV, human immunovirus, are spreading rapidly among young women, mainly through heterosexual sex, means male-female sex, and especially unprotected sexual relations with older men. Okay, so these are the things that are the main causes for experiencing more health problems by women than men. Okay, now we have discussed health as one of the gender issues in development. Now the next factor is employment. Okay, so we have discussed four factors so far. The first factor is life expectancy, which is the average lifespan in the world records. Okay, and the second factor that we discussed is population. So there are more men than women in the world. Okay, in developed countries, women live longer than men. In developing countries, men live longer than women. And the third factor that we discussed is health. Before health, we discussed education as the third factor. So almost two-thirds of the women in the illiterate population, almost two-thirds of the illiterate population in the world is contributed by women. And fourth factor we discussed is health. Women experience more health problems than men because of reproductive functions, discriminatory practices, and female genital mutilation (FGM). Okay. And the final, right now, the final issue, final gender issue for the development is employment. Lack of employment is a serious problem for all people. But women's rates of unemployment are generally higher than men. Okay, for all people, lack of employment is a serious problem, that is sure. But in that also, women's rates of unemployment are generally higher than men. So means everywhere women are lacking. In developing countries, men live longer than women. And in life expectancy also, means life expectancy is related to this. So in population also, men are more than women. Means women are less. And in health also, women are facing more health problems. And in education also, two-thirds of the illiterate population is contributed by women. And in employment also, women's rates of unemployment are more than men. And there must be equality of opportunity and treatment in employment. And there must be equal remuneration for work of equal value. If the work is of equal value, irrespective of the gender, there must be equal remuneration to avoid all these kind of development issues. Okay, to avoid all these kind of gender issues for development, one should follow these things. There must be equal access to healthy working environments and to social security. Means both for men as well as women, there must be equal access to healthy working environments as well as to social security. There must be equality in association with, there must be equality in association and collective bargaining. Okay, if anybody is in association, there must be equality for both the gender. Okay, men and women are masculine and feminine should get the equal opportunity in the association. There must be collective bargaining. If some bargaining is there, it should not be there. First of all, if bargaining is there, it should be same for all. Not little less for women, not little more for men. Not like that. It should be equal. Okay, and equality in obtaining meaningful career development. There must be equality in obtaining meaningful career development. Means as they work hard or as they work smart, so accordingly they should get career development. This should be there. If someone has some influence, other influence, political influence, even though they don't work, they will get more career development. But some people, especially female, even though they don't have any political influence because of that, even though they work hard or they work smarter, their career development is getting low. Okay, so this should not be there. There must be equality in obtaining meaningful career development. That is what it means. Okay. There must be a balance between work and home life, which should be fair to both women and men. Okay, most of the women are only taking care of their child, family members, etc., etc. Okay, but most of the men are taking care of their work more preferential. Should not be like that. There should be a balance between work, professional work, and personal work. Like home life is considered as personal work. Okay, so it should be fair to both women and men. So that is called the balance between personal work and professional work. And there must be equal participation in decision making at all levels. Okay, decision making should be carried by men and women equally at all the levels. Then only this employment problem will be overcome. Okay, so that is how employment is one of the gender issues in development. Okay, I hope you all understood what are the factors that I have discussed. The first factor I have discussed is life expectancy. Second factor is population. Third factor is health. The fourth factor is education, and the fifth factor is employment. Okay, and the references that I followed were Gender Studies by Kadambari and Gender Sensitization by Rajalakshmi Kalyani, and finally Gender and Development in India for the Current Issues by U. Kalpaga. Okay, so I suggest all of you to go through these references and get more knowledge. And finally, thank you very much for your patient staying throughout the session.
Like, share and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for more updates.